Greetings from the Minnesota Catholic Conference. I'm Ryan Hamilton, Government Relations Associate for the Minnesota Catholic Conference. Today's stop on our Faithful Citizenship Fall Tour brings us to Hibbing, Minnesota, where I've caught up with Mr. Spencer Igo. Spencer's running to represent District 7A in the Minnesota House of Representatives. So let's just jump right in and start by getting to know our candidate. Spencer, what motivated you to pursue this avenue of service? Why are you running for the state legislature?
So, this is my first time up for re-election. I was initially elected in 20. My background is public administration. So my passion in life is service to others, making communities stronger. And I had been actually working prior to this for Congressman Stauber. And that kind of really inspired me. He's a great mentor of mine of how you serve people and how you make a difference in your community. So running for this seat and running for re-election is about continuing that goal, right? I want to leave this place better than I found it. And the greatest blessing in my life was being raised in Itasca County up on the range. And I want to deliver that to hopefully my future family someday. That's why I'm doing this, because my tagline for my campaign is bringing our best days to reality. And I confidently believe that. And I think we can do that together with this election.
So we understand that door knocking is a big part of running for this type of legislative office. What are you hearing from the voters, and how does that align with what you hope to accomplish as a member of the legislature?
So it's kind of a two-part thing. We're coming out of COVID and the pandemic. I think the biggest thing that people realize is what happens when power gets centralized. So, we up here, especially in northern Minnesota on the range, we didn't have a lot of say in what was happening around our state. And so people have really gotten inspired to not only run for offices like mine, but it's school boards, it's city councils, it's commissioners. I mean, look around, there's signs that we've never seen before up. So I think people are really inspired to once again serve community, whether it be in a small capacity or large capacity. And then couple that with, inflation is front of mind for everybody. I mean, what's a carton of eggs right now? $4.29 or something? And those things add up. So the biggest thing that I want to deliver when I get to St. Paul is finding ways that we can give Minnesotans a hand up versus a handout. A handout is at one time kind of money that's going to make a difference, right? But if we can find a way in a hand up, whether it be a tax cut, whether it be cutting red tape, whether it be removing regulations that are redundant, that's a way that we can give Minnesotans be able to pursue that life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness that we're all entitled to. So that's kind of what my priority is, to get down there and then break up. There's this process in St. Paul right now called Omnibus Bills. So instead of passing a 6-page bill that says we're going to repeal the tax and Social Security, we need to lump it into an 800-page bill that probably has 200 pages of stuff that no one in this room would agree with. And then I would need to vote on that, representing 45,000 people. We've got to stop doing that. It's not fair to Minnesotans. It's not fair to the process.
Thank you. Unlike many advocacy groups, the Catholic Church's voice does not fit neatly into political distinctions. We do not speak as Democrats, we do not speak as Republicans, nor are we a single issue advocacy group. We do speak on a broad variety of topics considered by our lawmakers in St. Paul. If elected, and you know this, you've served already, you will be re-entering a highly partisan environment. And so how do you plan to overcome the partisanship that's going on in our policymaking process?
So, I've actually came up with a joke around this. 30% of the state is Republicans, 30% of the state is Democrats, and the other 40% voted for Jesse Ventura to be governor, right? Mm-hmm. So if we all had that kind of thought process moving into how we legislate and how we work together, we could get a lot more things done. I take a lot of pride in the fact that if you look up all 46 bills I've sponsored as the chief author, not one is partisan. They're all bipartisan bills that are working to make life better for all of us. And I think leading by that way, and especially with so many new members coming in, there's a chance to change the culture. And this is, I can't remember the last time we had this much turnover in this. It's probably been 30 years. So this is our chance to change the culture and kind of get away from the far left 10% and the far right 10% and actually start doing the work that everyone here wants to get done. And that's the message I've been trying to carry, and I've been doing. Some of my greatest accomplishments, my bills on public safety or environmental regulations have been bipartisan through and through, and we've seen them to the finish line. So I think setting that precedent and continuing that message and, not being afraid to walk over the other side of the aisle and say, hey, we don't agree maybe on mining, which is huge to us, right? Let's get a beer after session. Let's go out to dinner. Let's talk about it and learn and have a relationship outside the fact that we're sitting on opposite sides of the aisle. And it's been very effective for me, and that's what I hope to continue to do.
Okay, thanks. So thanks for some insight about your why and your how in service. Now let's get to some Q&A about specific issues that Minnesota Catholics that are on our top of mind for us, starting with the family. So according to the social doctrine of the church, the family is the fundamental building block of society. This view runs counter to modern society, which often prioritizes the individual and the state. Child rearing has never been easy or cheap, and it's only become more arduous as the cost of things like transportation, consumer goods, healthcare, and housing have all skyrocketed. There seems to be a growing perception that marriage and parenthood are lifestyle choices rather than fundamental vocations. And that perception is backed up by the numbers, steady declines in marriage rates and family formation amongst the middle and working classes. So would you agree that despite its vital role, the family's well-being is taken for granted by modern society?
Well, for sure it's taken for granted. And I think it's more than just taken for granted. I mean, it's being forgotten. And it's being forgotten because a lot of the policies we have in place right now. I mean, look at what we've done to shackle childcare for mothers that want to, take care of the neighbor kids. You legally cannot do that anymore. We've made it harder and harder for that family core unit to prosper. I mean, the way I am is because of my family unit. I mean, I had a brother and a sister, and we did everything as a family. And we've gotten away from that just because of this vast and ever-changing world. And we got to remember where our roots are. Sure. And I think if we lead with policy like that, that again gives a hand up, lifts up the family unit, we're going to see it prosper again.
Getting a little bit more specific, what role does the legislature play, specifically in creating the economic conditions for families to thrive, especially families who are raising minor young children?
Yeah, right. So I mean, kind of what I was saying before, if we can find ways to create tax cuts, right, that are going to give the family more money in their pocket, we're going to find ways to bring down the cost of childcare or remove red tape and regulation around that. Those are two major things that are affecting the average family right now. I mean, I have a cousin of mine who lives out in Boulder, Colorado. For 2 kids under the age of 3, it's $32,000 a year in childcare. It's just egregious numbers, right? But if we found ways to, again, maybe we can cut red tape, get back to families taking care of each other, communities taking care of each other, and those are all things that we can drive with policy, whether it be in health and human services, whether it just be in a tax committee. Finding ways, I mean, what do we have right now, a $9 billion surplus? That's proof right there that Minnesotans are being overtaxed. So we found ways to keep more money in our pockets. Could we inspire families to continue to grow and prosper again? And I think the answer is yes.
So in conjunction with advocating for policies that promote family formation, our bishops are actively opposed to the legalization, normalization, and commercialization of vices that have been proven to undermine the family unit. Do you support or oppose legalizing online sports gambling in Minnesota? And you can share your reasoning.
Yeah, so this has obviously been a huge debate here in St. Paul. We're kind of facing a weird time, right? Because every state around us now has legalized sports betting in some shape or form. What I think we're going to have to be faced with here in Minnesota is, can we do it in a way that is protecting young people, protecting families, and protecting our well-being? And that's what we need to do as policymakers. So unfortunately, our hand is going to get forced, because what's going to happen is, and it already does, people drive to Iowa, people drive to North Dakota, people drive to Wisconsin to do this. It's leaving our state. Why not create an environment here in Minnesota that is the safest and best way we could set the benchmark of doing it? And I don't know what that plan looks like yet, but that's where I stand, because I want to make sure it is safe to, again, limit exactly what you said. I mean, it's a vice.
Yeah. Along the same lines, do you support or oppose the legalization and commercialization of recreational marijuana in Minnesota?
And I think marijuana falls into the same line. For me personally, I don't believe in, another vice in our society is not a good thing. But again, we're faced with the same issues of people are leaving. I mean, we hear about it in the news. There's police making stops on the major interstates, leaving South Dakota and Iowa with, hundreds of pounds of marijuana. We need to find a way to regulate here so we can keep it out of minors, keep it out of young people, make sure it's very restricted so that we can control it. Because otherwise it's just going to keep flowing into the state without any control, unfortunately. And that also needs to be coupled with supporting law enforcement. And that's something that's really, I never thought in a million years you'd have to run for public office with pro-law enforcement on your literature. Unfortunately, these days you do. So I think those issues, again with sports gambling, are all tied together.
Moving on to motherhood and the post-Roe world. Catholics hold that life is sacred from conception until natural death, and that people at every stage of life, even those in the womb, should be respected, protected, and loved. Given that the overturning of Roe v. Wade is not the end, it is just the beginning. Abortion is still legal in our state, and now more than ever, we must create a policy environment where babies are respected in law and where women are not led to believe that abortion is their only option. What do you think we can do to best support mothers before, during, and after childbirth?
Well, I think one great thing, and I'll use an example out of Itasca County, is the New Beginnings Pregnancy Care Center, which is a nonprofit way that, we help mothers in every shape and form, whether it be I'm having trouble with my newborn or I'm pregnant and I don't know what to do. What a perfect example of government not being in the way and local government and local people making a difference. So I think it's our job as policymakers to help lift up organizations like that. Those are the people that are doing the most on the ground to advocate and make lives better for everybody. So that's the way we support them. And then we also can have policy combined with that makes it easier to raise a family. Having a child should never be a scary thing. It's one of life's greatest blessings, right? And if we can find ways to make motherhood good again by making a state that supports it, that's how we move into this new generation we've created with Roe being overturned. Yeah. And we can make a better Minnesota, really. And restore, you said birth rates being down, marriage rates being down. We restore that faith in family in a higher calling of what being a parent is. That's how we do it.
Great, thank you. And so moving on to the other spectrum of life, the end of life, we live in an age of highly advanced medical knowledge that has enabled us to significantly extend life. At the same time, that progress has enabled a throwaway culture, such as the legalization of physician-assisted suicide, and that devalues our people who most deserve our compassion, those with disabilities, the elderly, and low-income individuals. For Catholics, physician-assisted suicide is contrary to the dignity of the human person. Legalization of physician-assisted suicide unnaturally hastens death when it is thought that the person's life no longer has meaning or no longer has purpose. Would you be supportive of our efforts to prioritize compassionate alternatives to physician-assisted suicide, such as hospice and palliative care, and enact policies that promote holistic, accessible, and dignified end-of-life care?
Absolutely. Well, I'm a Catholic myself, right? The success and the beautiful blessing that the Catholic Church has given the world started by creating hospitals and hospice and taking care of those at end of life. Sure. That is our greatest strength. And we need to support policy that does that. Because I think this world needs a lot more compassion. And if we can create policy, again, that lifts people up, that's how we're going to bring our best days to reality. So I fully support that.
Right. And to our last question already, dealing with education. So many children in low-income families are trapped in underperforming schools, as families are not able to afford to choose a school that best meets their child's needs. What do you think about the principle that all parents should be given a choice to send their children to whatever school meets their family's needs, and that educational resources, tax dollars, should follow the student rather than bureaucratic systems?
Absolutely. Parents know best what's for their child. And we need to support parents, especially, look at our culture right now. We need to support our parents who are looking out for their children. I went to St. Joe's Catholic School in Grand Rapids, right? My parents made that choice for me. And I'm thankful every day for that. We need to continue to support policy that does that for all of our students across this state so they can, be out there and discover what's best for them. And again, we do stuff like that. That's how we're going to create better schools, right? It kind of creates a healthy competition in a sense.
Sure.
And that's what's going to drive all education to be better. So we, again, lift up students.
Right. Well, what a great conversation. Thank you, Spencer. Spencer
Absolutely.
Igo, folks, candidate for House District 7A. Thanks for the time today.
Absolutely.
And thank you for tuning in. And be sure to reach out to all candidates in the race and be faithful citizens. Thank you.